Prime Minister of Qatar stands in Washington, just one day after an Israeli airstrike hit the heart of Doha. The timing is tough, the message clearer than any words. A country just endured a direct military attack, smoke still filling its skies, and yet its Prime Minister shakes hands with American officials with a cold smile, as if nothing happened. And here comes the question on any mind. What's going on? What brought you here now? Why visit America at such a time? The answer came to discuss strengthening relations between the two countries. Qatar's statements from Washington itself confirmed that relations with America are at their best. No intention to downgrade ties, not even a thought of military retaliation against Israel. No counterattack, no threats. That's when the real question began. What's next? Did the Israeli strike fail? Is Hamas's leader still alive? So where's the political and military game headed? The scene was clear. Qatar put the strike aside and chose the weight of its relationship with America. For Qatar, the equation wasn't hard. Israel attacked, but America is the protector, and there's no alternative. Then eyes turned to the war itself. What's the news? How far did negotiations go? And Hamas leaders, will they stay in Doha or look for a new place to live? In a previous analysis, it was said that Qatar had 4 ways to respond to Israel. 1. Respond with a strike. Send planes to bomb Israel. Impossible. 2. Expel American forces and shut down Al Udeid base. Also impossible. 3. Cut diplomatic relations with America. Not an option. 4. Or complain about Israel at the UN Security Council. And that's what actually happened. Qatar went to the Security Council, poured its anger there. Every country spoke and condemned the Israeli attack, and Qatar voiced what was on its mind. But amid it all came 3 surprises that flipped the balance. The first surprise, Israel's envoy stood before the entire world. And instead of apologizing or justifying, he said it bluntly, "Yes, we struck Qatar and will strike again if you keep supporting Hamas." That statement came just hours after Trump promised that Qatar would not face another attack. The shock was thunderous. The second surprise, the American site Axios revealed that when Stephen Witkoff, Washington's envoy to the Middle East, first tried to reassure the Qataris, Qatar sent back a reverse message. Not only will we review our ties with you, we'll even look for another protector. But later, Qatar denied the report. Qatar said, "Our relations with America are at their best, even developing further." The third and most dangerous surprise, the Security Council's final statement condemned the attack on Qatar as a sovereign state, but didn't mention Israel by name. Worse still, it focused on the priority of releasing Israeli hostages. The statement put Qatar's case as a second priority. Question: who wrote the statement? Britain and France. It couldn't name Israel directly, otherwise a resolution against it would have been necessary, and then America would veto. That's why it was written vaguely. Qatar can say whatever it wants, but in the end all blame falls on Hamas. But how could Britain and France do that? Qatar pumped $120 billion into the British economy, creating 600,000 jobs for Britons. Qatar saved Macron in France with $10 billion. How could they betray it like that? The answer: yes, they saved Israel from condemnation, but in return they supported the UN vote on the 2-state solution. 142 countries agreed, 10 rejected, 12 abstained. But the truth, recognizing a Palestinian state is more symbolic than practical. 148 countries had already recognized it before, and nothing changed. The occupation still stands, the war continues, Gaza bleeds. So Britain and France at the core stood with Israel. Proof: they themselves drafted the statement that cleared Israel of attacking Qatar. The result: the world was convinced Hamas was the cause. Back to Qatar after the session. It came out, replied to Axios' report, denied any intention to reassess its relationship with Washington, and confirmed ties are at their best. On the contrary, Qatar's foreign ministry thanked America for its peace efforts, and America returned the gesture. America thanked Qatar for its role mediating between Israel and Hamas. Here's the irony. Israel struck Qatar because of Hamas, and America said Hamas's presence in Doha is unacceptable. Yet at the same time, everyone thanks Qatar for mediating between Israel and Hamas. The riddle clears up when we go back to the start of Qatar-Hamas relations. In 2006, when Hamas won elections, and after 2007 when it seized Gaza by force, the story began. After the 2008 war and reconstruction, Qatar stepped in as the main funder, paid salaries, built homes, took on the file. In 2012, Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa visited Gaza himself and set up Hamas's political office in Doha. From there, Qatar became Hamas's official patron, but at the same time, it played mediator in other files: Yemen, Lebanon, Sudan, the Taliban, even between America and Iran. But the most important file was Gaza. The advantage was Qatar's mediation wasn't just words, it came with huge funding for Hamas. Goal 1, win Arab and Islamic popularity as the biggest supporter of resistance. Goal 2, hold the strings of the Gaza game. Because whoever pays salaries and rebuilds homes can influence decisions. But the truth is, Qatari influence was tightly tied to America. The thread is all connected. Qatar funds Hamas, America consents, Israel benefits. Israel controls Gaza from afar, and Qatar pays the bill. Proof: from 2012 to 2018, Qatar transferred over $1 billion to Hamas. That money went in with Israel's knowledge and approval, so Israel was part of the equation, not its victim. That explains why Qatar didn't cut ties with America despite the strike. Because Hamas's office in Doha was itself arranged with Washington. For Qatar, Hamas is just a number in the equation, but America is the equation itself. And when Qatar recently announced it might close Hamas's office as pressure, Musa Abu Marzouk himself came out and said, "Our presence in Qatar wasn't a Qatari decision, it was an American request." Meaning the card Israel threatens Qatar with today is a card America itself created. Here lies the biggest irony. Israel struck Qatar because of Hamas, and the Security Council ignored Israel's name. In the end, Qatar was the one that flew to America to reconcile. Instead of America apologizing, Qatar said, "Our problem is with Israel, not with you. The question is Qatar's position toward America weakness." The truth, no, because any step against America would have been a free gift to Israel. Imagine if Qatar cut ties with Washington or expelled US forces from Al Udeid base. What would have happened? Simply, America would have put all blame on Israel aside, stood with it openly, and given it full cover to hit Qatar again. Qatar understands the game. That's why today it tries to exploit the situation, not surrender to it. Playing on multiple fronts with Egypt and Turkey, trying to achieve 3 clear goals. 1. End the war in Gaza. 2. Get humanitarian aid into the Strip. 3. Guarantee Qatar's own protection from another Israeli strike. But what's the price? The price is pressuring Hamas to release Israeli hostages. The message is clear: Hamas, free the hostages. Israel, stay away from Qatar. And if we look at the bigger picture, everyone is working in the same direction, even if each side follows its own path. Saudi Arabia, for example, supported a UN draft resolution condemning the October 7 attacks, demanding Hamas release hostages, give up rule in Gaza, and hand over its weapons. In return, Israel is asked to stop the war, and also to allow aid in, and accept an international mission to monitor a ceasefire. But amid all this, there's the knot of Hamas leaders in Doha. Israel insists they be expelled, and Netanyahu said it plainly: if Qatar doesn't expel them, we'll strike again. And America, as usual, stands with Israel, or at least ready to carry out its demands. So the big question: what will Qatar do? 3 options lie ahead. First, direct understanding with America to keep Hamas leaders in Doha under guarantees. Second, partial closure of Hamas's office. Smaller figures or those unrelated to October 7 stay, big leaders leave. Third, full closure, expelling all leaders, ending the file completely. But if the third scenario happens, where would Hamas leaders go? Options are very limited. Algeria, where they have an office and support from the Movement of Society for Peace, Muslim Brotherhood branch. Turkey, Erdogan was a historic supporter, but after he began restricting the Brotherhood, it's unclear if he'd reopen the door. Lebanon, they have Islamist support, but Mossad dominates there and has assassinated top Hamas figures before, like Saleh al-Aruri. Iran was an important backer, but its situation is sensitive in nuclear talks with America. Beyond that, Israel reached inside Tehran. It assassinated Ismail Haniyeh in his bedroom inside the presidential palace, meaning Iran isn't safe. Egypt, the closest option, especially since some Hamas leaders already live there, and Israel hasn't touched them. The problem: any of these choices carries high political and security costs. Hamas wants a place that protects it, while countries want to balance their interests with ties to America and Israel. What makes it more complicated? The threat of expelling Hamas from Qatar wasn't even Qatar's decision. Musa Abu Marzouk admitted, "Our presence in Qatar was by American request." So naturally, the one demanding our exit now is also America. Qatar is just the stage, not the decision maker. And that's Qatar's dilemma now. Israel presses, America accommodates, Hamas sits in between. Any wrong move could bring another strike on Doha. Proof: when Qatar tried pressuring Hamas to accept a truce, the expulsion threat came by direct American orders. So even the pressure card isn't in Qatar's hand. Today, Netanyahu is very clear: if Qatar doesn't expel Hamas, we'll strike again. And America lets the strings go. Lets the strings go into Israel's hands. So Qatar faces a hard square, either understanding with America or a temporary exit for top leaders. But the file remains open. No one can say now what the final decision will be. All eyes are on Doha, all breaths held. Until the Prime Minister returns from Washington, then we'll see, will Qatar actually expel Hamas leaders, or will it keep and protect them under American understandings? And more importantly, what's the fate of the Gaza war? Will it end soon, or was the strike on Qatar just the beginning? The beginning of a series of events that could change the whole region's shape? The questions remain open, the scenarios tangled. Today, Qatar is in a tough test, and the coming decisions will define its political and security future in the region. In conclusion, Qatar stands between Israel's hammer and America's anvil, while Gaza bleeds. The decision isn't in its hands alone, but in the end all eyes hang on Doha, and only time will reveal the ending.